terrible, terrible deal. How could you say that? What are you going to say to the families who are killed?
You just have to look at what they're saying. They contradict themselves and never say anything like it. They just lie and pile of lies. And eventually they just realize that that's real ethnic cleansing.
The rumors were that your brother's killer could be released. As every Israeli is impacted about everything that's happened, of course, for you and your family, it's even more impactful because your brother's killer. And yet you have been so, I'll say, pragmatic, that you understand that this deal or arrangement, but this isn't like baseball or some sports where you trade a great player for a bunch of future draft picks and we see what happens. We all know what we're giving up to get the hostages back. And yet you are asking everyone, insisting that we look at this from a broader perspective. And again, and I'm not judging anyone who feels differently because everyone's very emotional about this, but your approach has been just incredibly level-headed and pragmatic that I think can help so many people get past what we're all going through.
First of all, just to correct you, he is on the list. It's not a rumor. He is being released. That's certain. When he's being released and where he's being released to, that's unclear, but he's definitely being released, assuming that the deal doesn't fall apart. So I think this is a topic that I speak about a lot, not even necessarily pertaining to this deal or anything specific, but generally speaking, the internet and specifically social media is designed from the ground up to not facilitate nuance, right? The algorithms are built for extremism and for sensationalism and for lies and for poison and for hatred. And the more you do of that, the more eyeballs you're going to get on social media. And so the mechanism called the algorithms do not facilitate or support nuance. Everything is black and white, right? Trump is either the devil or he's an angel. And Biden is either the devil or the angel. And Netanyahu is either the devil. What about, I don't necessarily love his personality, but he's a great politician. Nuance, gray, right? The world is not black and white, despite what social media would have you believe. And that's true for many things. It's true for politics. It's true for geopolitics. It's true for most areas in life. It is true for this deal as well. This deal is absolutely terrible. There's no sugarcoating it. It is terrible. We're letting out 2,000 monsters. Like, mothers tell their children that there's no such thing as real life monsters. There sure as hell are such a thing as real life monsters, and we're letting them out. So it's terrible. And there's no sugarcoating it, and there's no belittling or dismissing that. That being said, in parallel, it's possible for it to also be a beautiful thing and the most Jewish thing in the world, because we have a fundamental pillar of Judaism. Freeing our prisoners and bringing back our people is at the core of Judaism. And so it's a terrible, terrible deal. And it's a beautiful, beautiful deal. It's terrible, obviously, to let out these monsters. And it's terrible for families like mine who are now going to see the murderer of my brother walk free. But it's also the most beautiful thing in the world to see these families, to see these hostages come out and hug their families and their friends. And furthermore, I don't think it would be responsible for any nation, but let alone our nation, to not pay whatever price we have to pay, because our people and our soldiers need to know that we will do whatever it takes to bring them home. And if we don't do that, then we lose, our legitimacy as a nation, as a people. And so, again, this deal, like most things, is nuanced. It's terrible and beautiful at the same time, two parallel lines that will never meet. And they both coexist, and that's fine. That's real life. And no one has to lecture me. But what about, I just literally, as I'm getting on this podcast, I get a message from someone. I saw your post where you said, that the deal is good because of ABC. How could you say that? What are you going to say to the families who are killed? I'm like, dude, relax. You know who you're talking to here? I'm paying the price. Let's relax and don't lecture me. Number one. Number two, if you want to know my opinion on the deal, go read the other, not just one post, go read the post that I've written, how it's a nuanced situation. It's not so black and white. And both sides, again, like in most areas, like to pretend that this is the only way to look at it. It's a terrible deal. Yes, we want to bring our hostages back, but no matter, we cannot let 2,000 terrorists. It's a horrible deal. On the other hand, those that say, okay, we'll let them out and then we'll deal with them later, but we got to bring our people home. It's both. It's both. It's gray. It's nuanced, and that's real life.
See, one of the things I hate about Facebook are all the nut jobs that you come across. I'm a Republican. I'm a conservative. The only people I've ever unfriended are other conservatives who have posted the most insane things. The leftists, I just ignore them because they're stupid, and I'm not gonna. I don't get that emotionally involved. Like you, I'm also deeply, deeply spiritual. And I remember when Trump got shot, that God saved him for one of two reasons: either to win and save America. And I'm not a celebrity worshiper here, but he is an effective person, or for him to lose to Harris and suffer the greatest busha of all time. And thank God it was the former. You've got him and you've got Bibi. Again, they're politicians, and the nature of politics is you make deals and deals suck. But I don't think that there could have been a better time. I wasn't there when Steve Witkoff made his deal, but we know based on Trump's record, when he said he's going to put the embassy in Yerushalayim, he did it. Recognize the Golan Heights, he did it. And now, when he said that he wants Jordan and Egypt to take these Gazans, I don't think it was a polite request. I think he's going to start off being nice about this, but he didn't bring it up to have them say no and then walk away from it. So this changes the dynamic of the negotiations. It changes the dynamic of the whole history, because the whole history of the Palestinian refugee is a myth, and he's the first president now who's going to do something about it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that, again, nuance, right? I think I wouldn't marry Donald Trump and I wouldn't hire him to babysit my kids, but policy is why you elect a president, not personality. And his policy has been consistently, good on all fronts, but let's just be upfront here. I'm talking about, the relationship between America and Israel. That's what's concerning to me. And, of course I care about many other topics, but to me, that's the most important. And when it comes to Israel, he's been a friend, both in action and in words. His rhetoric, the things that he said just in the first week in office has had more clarity, more moral clarity than Biden had in 4 years. Right. So, speaking about, just the very fact that he's even talking about, deporting Gazans to other countries is mind blowing, because even the most extremist Israeli politicians were scared to say those words. Others in the past traditionally have said those words, and they were basically labeled terrorists, like Kahana. And the idea of promoting what they call transfer, it's like, oh my God, so extreme. But when Trump says it, people start taking it seriously. And so it's both encouraging and refreshing to hear him speak about a war that is the only thing about that's not nuanced. Good and evil in the world. There is good and evil in the world, and it's something that is not popular to say in the woke culture, because everything's moral relativism and everything's just different. There's no good and bad, but there is good and bad, and this war is the manifestation of that. It is pure evil versus pure good, and unfortunately, so many people around the world don't see it, but Donald Trump does, and it's very refreshing.
Right. And again, listen, to me, there's always been another issue, and I know this is something you've spoken about, and I've had this disagreement with other guests when we talk about, is Israel winning? Now, we know on the ground, nobody in that region can touch Israel. But for me, as someone who's been a political activist for 40 years, I began 40 years ago in college in Detroit. In my opinion, and I won't change my mind, is that we have lost the narrative, because we have allowed Hamas and their supporters to control the narrative, to define the narrative. We've allowed them to hijack everyone's history: genocide, apartheid, ethnic cleansing. Those are three terms associated with other historical tragedies that now they've hijacked as their own. And they've gotten away with it, from the river to the sea. It didn't start yesterday or October 7th. It's been going on for years, but we ignored it as a stupid rhyme that now everyone knows what that is. So I think, and I've said this before, as American Jews, we have failed Israel.
I mean, I don't know that I would put the blame on American Jews, and I also don't know that I would define it as you're defining. I wouldn't call it we've lost the narrative. I would call it we don't have a narrative. We don't have a narrative. They have a narrative. Their narrative is very simple. You're oppressing us, free Palestine. What's our narrative? Go look at any Jewish influencer, pro-Israel activist on Twitter or anywhere else. What are they yelling about? Everyone's yelling about something else. Oh, the New York Times hates us. Oh, anti-Semitism. Oh, there's no unified narrative. People don't realize, when all eyes on Rafah, that campaign came out, you think it was just a coincidence that it went viral like that? It was meticulously planned, like any marketing strategy. And if I were hiring a marketing agency for my startup, I'd hire our enemies, because they're phenomenal at this. So first and foremost, they're unified. They have a narrative. We don't even have one. That's number one. Number two, let's not forget that we are limited by the truth. They're not, right? They can make up whatever they want, right? We can't. We're sticking to the truth. So, like I said before, lies are always going to trump truth, right? So, we are limited in that front. But the reality is that I think
you don't have to be a rocket scientist, nor do you have to be a Middle East expert or even a historian to understand how much of a fabrication their narrative is. And again, let me explain what I mean by that. You don't have to know anything about the Middle East. You don't have to know anything about history. You don't have to know anything about anything. If you have third grade logic, then you'll understand that their narrative is one big lie. And I'll give you a few examples. How could the same people yelling from the river to the sea, which literally means destruction of Israel and annihilation of all the Jews in Israel, are the same very same people who, in their next breath, are yelling, right, from the river to the sea, two-state solution. Wait, what? Wait, what? You can't have both, right? Same people who are yelling, globalize the intifada, which means a violent uprising on a global scale to murder as many infidels as possible, are the same people yelling ceasefire now. What? And so again, you don't have to be a rocket scientist. You just have to have logic to realize that you can't say that there's no food in Gaza, and then the next sentence is, but the hostages are being fed well. Which one is it? So you don't even have to contradict them. They do it themselves. The only people that don't understand, that their narrative is one big historical fabrication are the people that don't want to understand. Because again, you don't have to know anything. You just have to look at what they're saying. They contradict themselves more than I've never seen anything like it. They just lie, and it's just, a pile of lies. And eventually they just realize they've lost control. And their narrative is one big contradiction and paradox. And it's unbelievable if there are otherwise intelligent people around the world who simply don't see this.
Yes, but look at this, though. Let's ignore the useful idiots in the streets who want to get caught up in free Palestine. Because listen, when I went to college again 40 years ago, there was free Nelson Mandela. Now, I had never heard of Nelson Mandela. I just had come out of Tel's Yeshiva for 5 years. I didn't know who he was. But you see, if they're saying free him, that means he's in prison. And we have not pushed back against free Palestine. Number one, there's no Palestine. Number two, whoever they are, they're not free. But we've allowed that narrative to just continue through. That's number one. Number two, you mentioned the people who don't know better. At the DNC convention, Joe Biden, again, he's no rocket scientist either, but he knows better. And when he said at the convention about the Hamas protesters, some of them have a point. How was that not the biggest headline? You accused Donald Trump of saying that the Nazis some of those protesters were very fine people in North Carolina. And now you just said the Hamas protesters calling for death to Israel and death to America, some of them have a point.
Yeah, despicable.
So again, this is no longer useful idiots who just want to get caught up in a chic demonstration. This is the president of a major party. This is members of the Senate. Now, you just saw that Chuck Schumer, who calls himself the Shomer, I call him the Sheker, they blocked a Republican bill, and it could have been bipartisan, to sanction the ICC. Now, to use Michael Rappaport's language, who the mother blank 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 gave the ICC the power to sanction Israel?
Yeah. I mean, again, I don't think it's actual just like lies that their narrative, that they just lie all the time. I think it's actually even deeper than that. I think it's a psychological phenomenon called deflection, right?
Right.
Everything they accuse us of, they're guilty of. But like for real, apartheid. Have you ever stepped foot anywhere near an Arab village? Do you not know the sign that shows the entrance of any Arab village says, if you're a Jew, you cannot go past this spot? I mean, have you looked at any Muslim country in the world? That's apartheid. Like, for real apartheid. Genocide, ethnic cleansing. How many Jews are in Muslim countries? That's real ethnic cleansing. So whatever they're guilty of, they accuse us of. It's, it's textbook, deflection.
Right. But this comes back to, again, where I say that American Jewish groups have failed. If you look at the Conference of Presidents of major Jewish organizations, there are 50 organizations. How the heck did we not construct something where everyone is responsible for something? We have groups like Memory and Palestinian Media Watch. If we had nobody else but just them and everything that they have presented, we should have wiped the floor with this narrative a long time ago. And yet we're not. Itamar comes to America. He goes to Congress. He goes to Europe, speaks before Parliament. He shows them the evidence. And for a while, they'll suspend funding. Then it comes right back again. Memory has even more information than they do. So What's going on?
Listen, I think it all comes down to the fact that, the script is already written. The script's already written. And we know history repeats itself. So if you want to know what's about to happen, open a history book. And here's what's about to happen. I'll tell you right now. Every generation, there's an empire, right? An empire that grows and grows and achieves world domination and unparalleled, influence and power. The first thing that it does in every generation, the first thing that empire does is it throws morality out the window. In today's day and age, the hardening of the heart isn't only Hamas. It's unfortunately many people in the West who simply, when it comes to the Jews, they just can't see. There's a blindfold because, as I said before, there are things that are so paradoxical that make no sense. If you're a 4-year-old, you understand that they make no sense. But otherwise, intelligent, even brilliant people, moral people, somehow, when it comes to the Jews, it's all thrown out the window. So again, on the one hand, it's all very frustrating, it's infuriating, and on the other hand, if it surprises you that you weren't paying attention, it's all written. We knew this was going to happen.
Let me go back, and again, I don't want to open any wounds, but I'm sure you and your family and your parents and your everybody, you've had conversations about this. And I'm guessing also you probably may have counseled other people whose murderers are going to be released. What are the conversations, if I may ask? What are they like?
So, I am thankfully part of a very strong family. I would even say supernaturally strong. And we found out last Saturday night that his terrorist was on the list. And, as my younger brother Eitan says, it was a punch to the gut. And, we were all devastated. And we decided, why should we all be devastated at home? Let's all get together. So we went for burgers in Jerusalem and we sat and we talked it out. And, I think the consensus, I would say, is that nuance. It's terrible and it's painful as a nation and as a family, but it's unfortunately what we need to do right now to bring our people back. That doesn't diminish the pain, the personal pain or the tragedy. But unfortunately, this is the situation we're in right now. And so, someone said to me a few hours ago, I like the analogy. He said, the way I look at this deal is the best deal in the world because he says, we're getting gold, our hostages, and we're giving them, pardon my friend, dog poop, right? We're giving them garbage and we're getting gold, right? And so, yes, garbage and dog poop pollutes the environment. We need to clean that up afterwards. But first, let's give them their dog poop. We'll take care of it afterwards and clean it up. But right now we need our gold back. And, I like that. I like that because at the end of the day, it's true. I am deeply, profoundly proud of my people that we are willing to pay such a steep price to bring our people back. As I watched, those Thai workers get released, it is, the contrast could not be any clearer. They will kidnap, torture, murder, rape anyone. Irrelevant of who this person is, they have complete disregard for human life. Anyone. What do they have against Thai workers? What, are Thai workers taking their land, quote unquote? Are they occupying them? Why would they kidnap Thai workers? Because they don't care. And just like they don't care about human life, irrelevant of who that human is, the opposite is true about us. We so deeply care about human life, it doesn't matter who that human is. We are going to rescue Thai workers like we're going to rescue our own because human life is sacred to Jewish people. And the contrast could not be any clearer.